Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are on Season 3, Episode 10, Warlord. This episode aired November 20th, 1996. Before we talk about this one, anything to add about last week's episode, which was Future's End Part 2?
No, it was a great Star Trek episode. I really enjoyed that one. That was a lot of fun.
It feels like it was a very long time ago because we skipped a week and I had to take a work trip and then I came back and then I was like, was that really the last episode? But anyway, here we are.
Yes. It really was only a week skipped in real time, but it feels
longer.
Like, about a year, I think.
Yeah, it feels like months. But okay.
Who are you again?
But all right, here we are for Warlord. So you have the notes this week, so whenever you're ready.
We open on Neelix getting a foot rub and get to see a very close-up shot of Neelix's feet, which, quite frankly, I could have spent my entire life never seeing and being just fine with that.
Yeah, and making little, ecstasy noises, which...
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Like when they would do the Ferengi ears. I don't need that.
Well, it turns out this is a holodeck recreation of the Paxau Resort on Telax, which was the place for relaxation and personal pampering. Neelix has roped Tom and Harry into this thing, and neither of those two are particularly impressed. Neelix is open to suggestions of how to improve it, and I really don't think you should ask Tom and Harry that kind of thing.
No.
Because they basically transform the program into a Caribbean island resort, complete with steel band, and Harry even bringing in 3 holographic women who are volleyball players.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this scene comes to a quick end as Harry and Tom are called to the bridge. But not before we get another 6 seconds panning into a close-up shot of Neelix's feet while he's dancing and into the opening credits.
I don't know why we're obsessed with Neelix's feet.
Yeah, the whole opening scene seems to just be an excuse to show Neelix's feet. Was it Hobbit Week or something?
They do look like Hobbit feet. That's a good comparison. I
mean, the thing that's funny, I think, is somebody spent an awful lot of time doing the latex and doing the molding to do these feet. I don't know if we see them again, but it seemed like a really large amount of work for something.
That's probably why they showed him twice.
We briefly cut to Kes in her quarters, smelling a plant, and the doctor calls it a sick bay as there's likely to be incoming casualties. As on the bridge, we see a heavily damaged ship on the view screen, and it's even on fire. In space, it's on fire.
Oh, yeah. I always forget about that until you point it out.
You know, I actually wonder what fire in space like that would be like. Because would it get just put out immediately as soon as the air was sucked into the vacuum the moment the hull was breached?
Wouldn't it?
Or would you have air rushing out of the ship that would sort of sustain flames briefly before it got into the vacuum? Let's say you had you had a lot of volume on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
How long would it take for the air to run out if there was a fire?
Yeah, that's really not my area of science.
Yeah, it's not really something I've experimented with or know much about. Yeah.
But it never occurs to me until you point out there's no oxygen in space. We can't have fires.
Yeah. I wonder what a lithium battery fire would be like in space. Maybe the ship's powered by lithium batteries and they're on fire because they have their own oxidizer in there.
Maybe. About the holodeck program, I'm not sure exactly why we do stuff like this on Star Trek. I mean, nobody believes that this is how we entertain ourselves. It's just so goofy.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why we do it. And it certainly seems like we do it a lot on Voyager. I wonder if it was in response to criticism of Next Gen and they were trying to show something different.
Yeah.
Or I guess also if you thought about it carefully, this crew would have to be better about entertaining themselves on the ship because, as we've discussed before, they shouldn't be going on shore leave, but we know they do.
Because everything goes horribly wrong.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but also because it doesn't make any sense because it actually goes against your mission. But you can't also allow people to go wherever they want on shore leave. They would all have to go to the same place, right? On this particular mission, it's not like half of them can go to Risa and the other half can go somewhere else. We can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they're trying to show that they need more social activities or more downtime type things, but these things always come across as just so silly.
They do come across as goofy, but you make a really good point. I think that's actually something worth exploring, that you would need to constantly be finding ways to keep the crew entertained.
Yeah.
If you like the mind off the fact that you're not going to get home for 70 years.
Yeah.
So it would be a constant morale struggle. I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah, but then you should be creating, I don't know, group activities.
Yeah.
I guess that's what Neelix is trying to do, but it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I will say it's better than the smoky bar. I'll at least give them that.
It's a step up from Tom's dive bar.
Yeah.
Getting back to the story, the ship that's on fire, there are some survivors on board. They can't beam them out until they get closer. Tuvok warns they'll be at risk if the engine core explodes. And this is great. This is something that's always concerning me, about how close they are to exploding things.
Yes, you do bring that up.
Like in the Swarm, when they were blowing things up that were actually attached to the hull. They beam 3 people out just as the ship explodes. And in sickbay, there's one guy with a great chest wound. Good makeup job there. And it's not going so well. His heart stopped, and it's too late. The doctor finds the aliens' biochemistry is incompatible with their medications. And I will note, the doctor had Kes inject him with Lectrazine before he made that statement. How do we know that wasn't what killed him?
Oh.
You'd run into that problem constantly. You couldn't use any medications.
Yeah, this would be a very common problem, but, I've used this before. That's just not what this episode's about. We needed him to be alive. We couldn't have him dead. He needed to be alive and then die. That's it. The end.
One of those characters.
Yeah.
Well, we learn the dead guy was called Tyrion, and his wife seems pretty upset that he's gone.
Well, yeah.
The new aliens are now giving Janeway a debrief, spinning a story of how they were chased across the sector, causing damage to their ship. He claims to not know who it was, and puts the blame on mercenaries and thieves. We learn the woman is called Nori, and she's a cousin of the autarch, which is a real word I learned, meaning absolute ruler. So here's Star Trek being educational.
Yeah, me too. I had to look that word up.
Yeah, I thought it was a made-up word, but no, it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
These people seem very pleasant, and they even thank Janeway for her help. So as this is the Delta Quadrant, you know they just have to be scumbags. It's tradition. Basically, there are 2 culture types in the Delta Quadrant.
Mm-hmm.
One is screaming banshees who just want to attack and kill you.
Kazon.
And then the other ones are pleasant, friendly-seeming people who want to kill you after they get to know you.
Yeah. Nori does mention in the scene that Kes has been particularly attentive, and we did see Kes comforting her because she was with the patient when he died, and then she was trying to comfort his wife. Yeah, which is important later.
I don't think we learn the doctor's name here.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's like way later we find out who the doctor is.
Okay, yeah. Did you get the impression here that we had contacted the planet, or we were just going to the planet?
I got the impression they were just going to the planet. They hadn't contacted them at this point.
Okay.
Back to the holodeck and Neelix. Doesn't he have anything better to do? I mean,
apparently
hasn't he
not.
been in this holodeck now for like hours and hours? Shouldn't there be lunch or dinner to cook?
Well, he's the morale officer, but unfortunately, he's concerned about the morale of holodeck characters.
Well, Neelix is concerned that Kes missed their lunch date. And this is also an excuse to put B'Elanna in a swimsuit. Like the Dax Riser episode.
Right. I noticed none of the other main crew is wearing a swimsuit in this episode.
Well, B'Elanna tells Neelix she's added a few modifications to the program of her own. And in the spirit of Harry, we see her snorkeling companion is a large, very toned guy.
Good for B'Elanna.
The computer tells Neelix Kes is in the transporter room, and we see she's giving the aliens a tour of the ship. And the guy here seems a bit like old school Bones, not liking the transporter.
Like, is it safe?
Yeah.
This is the point where Neelix calls her and says, "Oh, did you forget lunch?" And she tells them, "Oh, I have to leave." And then she just leaves them in the transporter room.
Yeah.
Like, are we not concerned? Again, why are we never concerned when we have new aliens on the ship? We don't do anything.
Yeah.
It's just wandering around, pressing any buttons they want to press.
Shouldn't Tuvok be complaining about this?
Yeah, shouldn't Tuvok be the one showing them around?
Oh, that's definitely going to be on Tuvok's blog. Once again, we are leaving aliens wandering around the ship without proper security.
Well, he wasn't there. I mean, whose fault is that?
Nobody listens to me.
Well, that might be true because at the beginning, when Janeway is trying to beam the people out of the ship that's on fire in space, Tuvok is like, we shouldn't get too close. And she does it anyway. She's just like, sure. And she does it anyway. And I was starting to think, does she ever listen to Tuvok when he gives a warning? Because bad things happen all the time. And we know she's not cautious.
Yes. Well, maybe she'd be worse if Tuvok wasn't there.
Maybe. But yeah, maybe he does always say somebody should be walking with them. And they're like, no, they're fine.
What can they possibly do?
Right.
Off to the lunch date with Kes and Neelix. And she seems very distracted, complaining of a slight headache.
Yeah.
Neelix also observes she's been almost inseparable from these new friends. And she's really off with Neelix here, complaining that he basically wants to spend too much time with Kes and who she's friends with, and then drops the bombshell that it might be a good idea for them to spend some time apart, and just walks out, leaving Neelix very confused.
Yeah, because this is what she should have done in season 1 when he was acting like that.
Exactly.
I like when she implies that she's not allowed to have friends or spend any time without him. And he says something like, well, I would hope you would want to spend time with me. And I thought that was like the most innocent response, that's really what you would say or maybe at least think in a real relationship. Rather than, he never got defensive. He was just really confused by what she was saying.
You mentioned season 1. I guess it's the thing of you accelerate the growth of characters. You make somebody who is like an awful, jealous boyfriend into kind of this guy who seems actually quite relatable. Doesn't seem like a terrible person.
Yeah, but it was unwatchable.
Yeah.
I think they just adjusted him because nobody wanted to watch that. I mean, we didn't want to watch that. No. It was annoying.
Right.
And also she never stood up for herself. Yeah. So that's part of why it seemed so abusive, right? Is because she would just assume that this is how relationships are. And now she says that here, right? She implies it here, but this is something she should have said in season 1. But that made me wonder is this really Tyrion talking, or is there a little bit of Kes in there?
Oh, he's pulling from her memory pool.
Yeah. Well, he says later that he's like aware of her emotions.
Right.
So maybe there is something there.
Voyager's now arriving at the planet Alari, which is the home of these aliens, and the autarch is sending an official representative to visit the ship. Kes joins Janeway with the Alari in the transporter room as the official is beamed aboard, and then everything goes to hell. Kes pulls out a phaser, shoots the representative, shoots the transporter NPC, and then starts struggling with Janeway before the Alari doctor takes Janeway down with the traditional double-fisted blow to the back of the neck. That's a bit of a Star Trek classic, the two-handed punch.
Okay, a couple things.
Yes.
The 2 guys who got shot never even got lines. Just down. That's the cheapest way to have an extra.
Yep.
It was certainly a shock when Kes pulled out the phaser and shot it. You did not. Yes. I mean, they really didn't give you, even in the rewatch, they really don't give you any clues at all that that's coming.
Oh, yeah.
She just pulls it out and she's behind Janeway, so Janeway can't see it.
Yep.
But Janeway immediately reacts and runs to her. But again, we're beaming somebody on board that we don't know, and there's no security. Where is Tuvok?
This is one of my overanalysis points. You're bringing in an alien representative from another planet. Wouldn't you have security there just in case it turns out, oh, these 2 people? Yeah, they're wanted terrorists.
Yeah, I don't get it. Although I have questions about why they would have even beamed somebody here, but we can talk about that later.
Well, the reaction is pretty funny as well, because Tuvok in the bridge is like, oh, it appears phasers have been fired in transporter room right.
Yeah.
Oh, should we look into that? What do you think?
Yeah, he doesn't even move right away until they call the captain and she's like, oh, something bad is happening. And then she gets hit in the head. And then Tuvok's like, oh, I guess I better go.
It seems a very low-key response for something that's kind of important.
I know. And why don't we ever just beam right there? I don't get it.
Oh, good point.
Or I'm always saying, release the gas. Let's just gas everybody in that room. We'll clean it up later.
Neurocene gas everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, Kes manages to lock Harry out of the transporter and beams out a shuttle, along with herself and the 2 Alari. And I guess the shuttle password was once again 1234.
Always.
Chakotay orders using phasers on the shuttle to try and take out the engines, but too late. They've jumped to warp. And these guys are tricky. They've disguised their warp trail, so there's no following them either. And we learn the NPC had a name, Ensign Martin.
Oh.
The Alari guy didn't even have a name. He was just the representative.
He was a representative, yeah. It's frustrating to me when all of the things that should work don't work. Like, oh, we're locked out of the transporter. Oh, the tractor beam doesn't work. Oh, and now somehow they've managed to mask their warp signature, which, by the way, we follow warp signatures all the time. So how can these guys, who've never seen anything from the Federation before, know how to mask the warp signature?
Does Kes know all about that kind of stuff?
I wouldn't think so. She seems to be studying medicine.
Yeah.
And by the way, where did they warp to? Don't we stay on the same planet? Where did they go?
I assume they just got away. They just went and hid somewhere. They found a moon to hide behind.
Behind a moon.
And then came back later.
Okay.
They looked in the Starfleet manual, and top of the list was hide behind a moon.
Hide behind a moon. Number 1 defensive strategy.
Yep. Now on the shuttle, Kes is clearly in command and suffering from another headache. They've arrived at some planet and beamed up a guy called Resh.
Oh, you don't think they're at the same planet? They've gone somewhere else?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I thought they were on the same planet.
Oh.
That's why I said, where did they go?
Oh, well, maybe they just hid behind a moon for a bit until Voyager got in orbit, got to the other side of the planet, and then came out. I thought it was another planet. Okay, that's a good point.
Like, could have been, but they didn't really say.
No, they didn't.
Again, not what this episode's about.
Yeah. Well, here we get the big explanation and the reveal. Resh points at Kes and asks, "That's Tyrion?"
He's like 2 feet shorter.
Yeah. Kes replies, "The host body you were expecting is dead. Fortunately, the young nurse was with me at the right time and provided a suitable replacement. So it's a classic Trek. Someone has taken over somebody else's body."
Yeah. And he likes this one.
Yeah.
I mean, what's not to like?
Resh is a little reluctant to follow orders from, as he puts it, a little girl. And the newly possessed Kes has discovered her interesting abilities and starts using her telekinetic powers on the guy, forcing him to the floor, and there's like blood coming from his nostrils. It looks like he's getting beaten up purely from Kes's telekinesis.
Yeah, and we have like little extra nostrils on these aliens.
Yes.
That was a bit much. Blood coming out of the little tubes on top of their nose. It's like, you've already got a nose. Why do you need more noses?
Yeah, they seem to have like 3 nostrils.
At least.
Well, this seems to do the trick. And Resh is loyal again, calling Kes Sir.
Yeah.
Off to Voyager in orbit, and I don't think I've mentioned how much I love the look of that ship.
Not today.
Janeway's recording a log, and they're talking to the autarch's eldest son, Demis, to try and understand what's going on. He explains how Nori and Aiden, that's the doctor, are political extremists. He goes on to explain what happened to Kes. She's been inhabited by the consciousness of a very dangerous man called Tyrion. He was a former autarch of Alari over 2 centuries ago, and his goal is to regain power. And we get the classic despot story. He was brilliant and started off very good, and then slowly became completely paranoid, seeing traitors everywhere, and he was finally overthrown by one of Demis's ancestors.
And he was also obsessed with his own mortality. We get that one a lot too.
Somehow Tyrion found a way to transfer his consciousness into another body before he dies. Demis tells Neelix the Kes he knew is lost. And Janeway says, "Oh, possessions are a pretty common occurrence in Starfleet."
That's what she's thinking.
Yeah.
I have many questions.
Naturally, Janeway isn't just going to accept things and orders the Doctor to examine the body and figure out how Tyrion did it. Demis wants Voyager to help defeat Tyrion, but she just wants to rescue Kes.
For a change, we don't get a speech about the Prime Directive, which, I mean, she really should be saying, "I'm sorry, I can't get involved in your politics." Yeah, she never says that. Instead, she's just like, "No, we're going to save Kes," which I do get.
Yeah.
But you also shouldn't be involved in their politics. At the same time, she sort of caused this, I guess, right? Because she rescued those 3 from the mysteriously burning ship.
Oh, I don't think you could really even possibly take the Prime Directive on this. Because you rescued those people, 2 of whom arguably are terrorists, and one of whom is the reincarnation of an insane autarch who ran the planet. You've already caused a whole lot of trouble and has taken the body of one of your crew.
Yes, but realistically, you've only got this one guy's version of events.
Yeah.
You don't know that any of the stuff he's saying is true.
He's got a great speaking voice. I think we can trust him.
Yeah, he is speaking with authority. I will grant him that. And he doesn't seem crazy.
Right.
But it's like, I don't think we can just go on that. And we don't look into anything. We're just like, sure, we'll go with this guy. At one point, Tuvok asked a question about, like, who's in charge according to the law. And the guy's like, "Oh, well, me. Sure. anybody could say that. But I have a lot of questions because, first of all, if these two were known extremists, why did the representative of the leader even go to Voyager and went up there with no security and no plan?
Yeah. Maybe those are just common names. So
I guess they could have given false names.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't really say who they were.
Norrie Smith.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, yeah.
If they contacted the planet and said they found these people.
Yeah. Known extremists.
Maybe they found that out afterwards. Maybe he was using their names, but their real names were something else.
Yeah. Or maybe they've just changed their names. I guess that is possible. Now, my other question is, does this timeline really work? So he ruled 200 years ago.
Yes.
But it took exactly 200 years. And Kes, in order for him to be ready to move in and all of his people to be ready, it's like, where has he been? Where's he been the last 199 years?
I think I have an answer for this. I assume he's been waiting for the moment to take over again because he got overthrown initially. So maybe the problem was after he got overthrown, there was only a small percentage of people who actually liked him, or maybe even a tiny minority of people.
Yeah.
So his leadership has been growing. And over 200 years, you could potentially push out a lot of propaganda.
Yes, you can. It turns out you can do it in less than 2 months as well.
Like saying that this was a golden age and he was a wonderful leader. So, the natural discontent that happens just, with people normally, he's reached a point, maybe a tipping point that he has enough followers that maybe he could seize power. It still doesn't seem like he's in the majority, but he has enough support.
He only had 200 troops or something.
Yeah, but maybe he has enough support that if he pushed, he could take control.
Well, okay, I hadn't thought about it that way. I also hadn't thought about the fact that perhaps he was on his way to the planet to do this, but the ship got attacked, right? And so he was actually already happening.
Oh, yeah, I think the wheels were already in motion and just Kes was a road bump.
Okay, I think I missed that, but that actually makes more sense. And then my last question in this scene is one of the things that Demis says about Tyrion taking over Kes is he says he has access to her feelings. And that was why I was wondering, okay, was there a little bit of Kes, right, in there about her complaints to Neelix? Because he specifically says that he has access to her feelings.
Oh, so there's a little bit of that there.
Yeah,
maybe.
Really makes me think, but they don't really explore that. I want to know.
No, they don't never bring that up again.
Nope.
Janeway's now called to the bridge as they found the shuttle. It's in orbit, and 4 people on board beam down to the planet, into the main chamber of the Imperial Hall. And down on the planet, Kes is storming the planet, phaser out, and just shooting the guards. This is like Lon Sutter level of clearing a room.
Except she is just walking in confidently shooting. She's not even sneaking around.
Yep. She marches up to the autarch and just shoots him straight dead.
That surprised me.
And if you notice, she also shoots the guy who's just carrying a tray of drinks.
Yeah, poor guy.
That's pretty low, killing the server.
Yeah. Maybe he was trying to bring you a drink. What are you doing?
Hey, Tyrion, so good to have you back. Zap.
Boom.
Kes now takes the talisman, which looks like a neck brace, and declares, "This was stolen from me 200 years ago, and I've dedicated every moment since to putting it back where it belongs."
I did like that. I thought that was dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing didn't even look like it was rubber, which I'm sure it was. It actually looked quite realistic.
It did. It looked very good.
Yeah.
Although you'd think after that amount of time and achieving effective immortality, you could maybe move on, find something else to do.
No, I think he's obsessed with this.
Sometimes you've got to listen to that guy, Joaquin, who says, "Sir, we have a ship."
Oh, yeah.
And the means to go where we will. This is the problem with all autarchs.
Yes.
Continuing in the palace, they're dragging out the bodies. Fortunately, they didn't shoot the tailor, as Kes is absolutely rocking this evil leather villain suit.
It's like a Mirrorverse uniform that she's got going.
With the boots as well. Absolutely awesome.
Yep.
I will comment, though. I think for the look, villains might actually look better in lace-up Dr. Martens rather than the sleek boots. And I mean, the 22
more
hole,
dramatic. Yeah,
the big lace-up boots. Mm-hmm. Because those take some effort. Riding boots, you just pull those on and off. But there's a level of dedication if you're going out of the way as the villain to lace up like a 22-hole pair of like Dr. Martens, that's telling you mean business.
Yeah, it's the drama.
Well, this scene is pretty good because she's playing this character as a little manic. She's ranting about how everything should look as it did during his reign. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is Nori, who's watching, doesn't seem very thrilled about this.
No.
And saying she doesn't know if she's even still his wife. Seems very confusing for her.
I love this scene. Well, first of all, she's pulling stuff off the wall, which is hilarious. Oh, yeah. She's like, I don't like this treatment. I don't like this. And she's throwing vases on the floor.
Yep.
But she does stop at a plant or some flowers, right? And then you kind of think, oh, Kess. Is there some Kess in there? But then she does this weird, like, run across the room. The whole scene is wild.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She, like, takes the flower and smells it as well, which was, like, what Kess was doing at the beginning. So I think it's that callback to Kess isn't gone. And then, weirdly, it just kind of flips. Because really rationally, Tyrion calmly apologizes to her, saying he didn't consider how unsettling this must be for her, and promises to share everything with her. It's really interesting, I thought, going from the ranting to this quite calm.
Yeah. Yeah, she's all over the place. I mean, it's quite funny, too. Maybe I didn't think it was so funny until I watched it the second time, but she says to Nori, what is it? You don't look happy. It's like, what are you talking about? My husband is all of a sudden this tiny little woman. Yeah. And this is not exactly what I was expecting, right? It's a little unsettling.
Yeah.
And then they do this thing where she's saying, no, we're still going to be together, whatever. And she leans in like she's going to kiss her. But then very cowardly, they're interrupted. Then when I watched it the second time, because I thought, hey, they did a woman-woman kiss on Deep Space Nine. We could have done that here. But this is slightly different. When I watched the second time, I noticed that Nori was actually backing up as she was coming at her. She's like, do not kiss me.
Yeah, she is not down with this whole thing.
She is not, yeah.
So you think she's normally okay when he transfers to some other guy? Does she get to pick them?
Well, it does make you wonder, right? Yeah, how many times? Yeah, maybe she gets to pick the body. Then it's fine.
You know that guy who played Captain America? Is he available? What about Thor? Yeah. Is he available?
Oh, yeah. Could we have Thor? Thor was great.
Well, this is interrupted when the autarch's henchmen bring the youngest son of the autarch. He's called Amaran. And basically, Tyrion talks him into joining her. And it's interesting because Tyrion does seem to know how to appeal to this guy, saying he was never in line for the throne. So sort of understands how giving him this offer of power, he's going to jump at it. So I think we're seeing a little bit there of Tyrion knows how to play the power politics.
Well, and there's even an element of seduction, right, in this scene.
Oh, yes.
And at first I was like, okay, why are we doing that just because there is a woman playing this part? Why does every scene have to involve that? But when I watched it the second time, it was like, oh, you know what, this is actually quite interesting because it implies that there's some of Kess in there. Yeah. But it also really just implies that Tyrion is probably just like this.
He's a manipulator and he knows how to, if you like, play the game.
Yeah.
I will say that Kess Tyrion does kind of back this up by asking Amaran if he'd rather die a martyr or rule by his side. So I think that's also a little bit of unfair bargaining. Back on Voyager, the situation on Alari is getting worse. It sounds like the planet is on the verge of a civil war. Damus wants to go to war, but Janeway does convince him to listen to the Doctor. And there's a possibility to remove Tyrion from Kess. And the Doctor has pretty much figured it all out. Tyrion had an implant which used bioelectric microfibers to transfer his consciousness through touch to Kess. This seems so familiar or so similar to the technology that Vantika was using in The Passenger, right?
Was it the same?
I don't know if it was the same, but certainly similar because he actually had to touch Bashir.
Right. He actually, I remember that he did have to touch him.
The Doctor, being a medical genius, has developed an implant that could remove Tiernan's patterns from Kess's brain, but it has to be in direct contact with her skin. Demis does comment that if he got that close to Tyrion, he'd use a Thoron rifle to be completely sure. Was that a Janeway maneuver there?
Oh, we're going to see a little Janeway later.
Janeway does manage to convince Demis to at least try her strategy before jumping straight to war, and Tuvok volunteers to infiltrate the Great Hall to get close enough to Tyrion, or Kess, to try the device. This is great Tuvok here. There's no pause. He's just straight in to save a member of the crew.
Yeah, but I have a comment about it when we actually execute of the logic of this plan.
Back on the planet, Aiden has installed the new cortical implant into Kess. and she complains about the headaches. Aiden tells her it's because this body is not accepting the neural patterns. The previous hosts were all willing volunteers. So that's interesting, I thought. So Tiernan probably has something of a cult following around him. Mm-hmm. So you have these true believers who'd be willing to give up their bodies for him. Aiden suggests Tiernan transfer to a more compatible body, but he likes the unique mental abilities of Kes, dismissing that a mere child poses no risk to him. Here we see the hubris. He's literally checking off all the boxes for how to be a dictator. Yep. Is the I was chosen by God coming next? Now, in a meeting of the council, we see that some of the redecorating that Tiernan requested earlier has been done. There's now a big painting of him on the wall.
Or Christian Bale, which is who it looks like. I couldn't figure out why we hung up a portrait of Christian Bale
in this episode?
Yeah.
Well, this is a meeting of his council, and then Kes stops it and says, "There's a familiar presence in this room." And I felt one of them should have at least said, "Obi-Wan Kenobi, here?" Tiernan then starts checking all the guards, but Tuvok surprises her from behind and attaches the device to Kes's face, but then just stands there as Resh pulls it off, and Tuvok is captured.
This is the worst. This is like one of those terrible Deep Space Nine plans we used to talk about. It's like, This was your plan? In a room full of people, you were going to stick a thing on her face and then just stand there?
Right.
What are you doing?
Try dragging her away, fall on her to protect the device, because it seems to work pretty... We'll talk about this later, about how long it takes.
Put it somewhere out of place so people can't see it, and then it would just work, and they wouldn't have even known what happened.
Yeah. Agreed. Deep Space Nine planning.
Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the scene, they're all sitting at a table having some kind of a meeting, all facing forward, which is quite funny. But he talks about his people, and I was trying to figure out, who are his people? If he's been gone for 200 years, do they even, the people who live there, do they even know who he is? Like, I don't know that I would know someone who appeared 200 years later. It's like, oh, sure, that's the person I want to follow.
Yeah.
And then also, would they accept him as Kes? The whole thing is suspicious.
Oh, right. Whether they would have the same reaction as Resh, and he'd have to use telekinesis to torture them into agreeing.
Is to torture everybody on the planet so that they know that he's serious.
I think when you're an autarch, little things like that don't matter.
I guess, yeah. I have the thing around my throat. I'm in charge.
Oh, yeah. I have the neck brace. I'm good.
Everyone worships me. These are my people.
Tiernan is now interrogating Tuvok and not getting any answers, and he threatens him using Kes's telepathic abilities. He's sensing his thoughts, and she tries tempting Tuvok telepathically, offering him what he's always secretly desired, and kisses him. And this is a little bit more of that sort of seduction thing you were talking about. Mm-hmm. But Tuvok isn't really going for it. Also, bad idea to kiss him, because he immediately starts a mind meld and reaches Kes. She's still in there, and she's fighting Tiernan. Tuvok tells her, take his strengths and make them her own. But Tiernan regains control, throwing Tuvok against the wall. Ouch.
I do like how the character itself is quite unsettled, even before Kes comes out.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You can just see that he's uncomfortable in there and pacing. And like I said earlier, there's the part where he's just walking and then he's running.
Yeah. It's like almost manic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On the orbiting Voyager, Janeway is considering a more forceful option. They're going to send a team to the surface. And of course, Janeway is going with them because she wants to take that really big gun with her.
Uh-huh. She's been waiting.
Neelix also volunteers to go, and Harry has found a weakness in the security detection grid. But Tiernan calls to let them know that Tuvok failed, and that the flaw in the defenses is a ruse. It's a trap. He tells them he has no quarrel with Voyager, and this is a friendly warning. Accept your losses and be on your way. And this I thought was interesting, because if he has Kes's memories, then he should absolutely know Janeway has the bit between her teeth. She is you are going down, or Voyager is going down. There's no middle ground here.
Yeah, I thought about that too, but maybe Kes is covering that, right? Maybe she's able to sort of fight that knowledge, or, I don't know, convince him of something else.
That's a good point. Maybe he hasn't actually got everything.
Maybe not.
Back on the planet, Aiden the doctor is getting concerned as Kes does not seem to be well. The doctor advises he needs to get some sleep, but Tiernan tells him he can't sleep because Kes is there. And I thought that was great. So you're seeing him getting unnerved. He's not even able to sleep because Kes is obviously inside his mind.
Right. Like the Phantom of the Opera.
Sitting down, the exhausted Tyrion falls asleep, and we go into a scene with Kes confronting him. She demands he release her, or she'll force him out, and she describes him as contemptible. This is a really good scene. He tries tempting her, saying, "You may find you enjoy having power." But Kes shrugs it off, saying that won't work with me. He claims she's an annoyance, but she tells him she's more than that, and it's wearing him down. He's becoming more unstable every day. She describes him as a monster, saying she has no compassion for him. And it's great because this is where she just gets relentless.
Yeah.
I loved it when he's just like brushing her off and she just keeps on coming back. And she brings up how he's already deteriorating. And she says she'll find every crack in his defenses. He'll find himself crumbling within. Wonderfully determined. And then she just marches up on him and he backs all the way to the wall.
Yeah. It's funny to think when he tried the seduction thing on her, it's like she's in your mind. What?
Yeah.
How is that working exactly? I also was amused to realize that the actor playing Tyrion in this scene, because we don't really see much of him because it's pretty much Kes the whole time, is the same actor that played Joran in Deep Space Nine when it was Ezri. Remember the episode where you could shoot the gun through walls or something?
Oh,
and she went on an investigation and she was using him.
Yep.
So now he's played 2 Star Trek characters that didn't really exist. They were just figments of somebody else's imagination. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So he's been on Star Trek twice. Who did you play? Well, nobody.
I played 2 dead characters. I thought this scene was so well performed because you see Kes start off with the sort of soft, sweet Kes. And then during it, she transformed into this, "I will crush you and grind your bones for meal." It was, Jennifer Lean really nailed it in this one.
Oh, yeah, she's really good in this whole episode, but I agree, she's very good in this scene.
Yeah. This is all brought to an abrupt end when the Doctor wakes Tyrion. He tells him, "This has gone too far. The neural stress is too high, and Tyrion must transfer out of Kes's body before it destroys him." Tyrion, of course, does not want to give up Kes's unique abilities, and then uses them to kill the Doctor while ranting about how he'll be stronger than ever as he sits alone in the room with the body of the Doctor.
I don't think it's a good idea to kill your doctor.
No, especially the guy who knows how to do the memory transfer stuff.
Yeah.
Back to the Great Hall, and they've cleared away the dead Doctor, and Tyrion is holding a force everybody to be happy party. You know, it's like one of those corporate events. And I notice here he's handing out the drinks, so I assume he's killed another server.
Oh, no, he killed all the servers.
So here, with everybody looking not very happy, he presents his new husband-to-be, and it's Amaran. And Kes kisses him right in front of his wife.
Yeah, and then she's like, "Don't worry about it. You know, this is all just for show or something." And you're like, okay.
Tyrion tells Nori, it's just a marriage of convenience, a political alliance. And I feel this would be something important to discuss with your wife before you make the announcement.
Well, but it's only true for a few seconds because of what comes next.
Tyrion also tells her they want all of them to be very, very close friends. Nori starts pulling away. She doesn't seem very keen on this new 3-person family dynamic.
Yeah, it's like, first my husband turned into a woman, and now she wants me to be in a throuple. What is happening? This is not what she signed up for when she got up this morning.
Yes, she eventually pulls away completely, pulling her hands away from Tyrion, or Kes. Then things start going really wrong. Tyrion just starts yelling to no one, "I'm not listening to you."
Yes.
So we see Kes is getting through.
Yep.
The happy party is now interrupted by Resh reporting enemy ships are approaching, supported by Voyager. He tries to get Tyrion to retreat to his shelter, but he just wants to continue the party and begins ranting about a new edicts, building a library, and how every citizen must have a garden, as he loves plants and flowers and everything that grows, and talks about the seedlings in the hydroponics bay. And this is great. This is, this is where you see Kes is turning his mind to mush. We hear explosions as the attackers have broken through the defenses. Resh again tries to get them to retreat, but Tyrion commands, anyone who leaves the room will be shot as a traitor.
She is just like, I will kill anyone for not having fun at this party.
Yeah, Tyrion has reached the full die in the bunker mode of being an autarch. There's more explosions as Tyrion gets more and more delusional. In the dungeon, Tom has rescued Tuvok and steps over a fallen guard who was just faking it and a fight ensues. Another
Come on,
example of why double tap is so important.
Double tap.
Back in the hall, Tyrion is seriously losing control as Nori is trying to encourage him to keep fighting. But it's too late. Janeway made it to the hall, and yes, she's got the big gun.
And you know what we're going to do? Straight power play.
Oh, this is 1000% Captain Sisko straight power play. They make quick work of the guards as Tyrion and Nori try to escape. Neelix manages to make it to Kes and stuns her as she draws a weapon. Putting the doctor's device on her head, she wakes, telling Neelix. Tyrion is still there. He transferred to someone else. He's hiding in a new host. And it's Amaran. He rants she can't do this, and Kes just replies, "You died a long time ago. Now it's time to let go." And she puts the implant on Amaran as he screams. And did you notice that took like 2 seconds?
So it should have worked the first time.
Yeah, Tuvok had that on her head longer.
He forgot to press the button.
Oh.
Download.
He put it on and they went, how does this work?
Wait, I gotta get the manual.
Is it the red button or the blue one? Kes takes off the official autarch neck brace and hands it to Demis, telling him it's over, and he just nods. Now back on Voyager, Tuvok and Kes are meditating. She's having difficulty concentrating because she's thinking of all the people that suffered and died. Tuvok reminds her she was not responsible for Tyrion's actions. She's still concerned she should have done more. Maybe she should have fought harder. And Tuvok continues, it was her refusal to surrender that defeated him. You cannot ask more of yourself. She tells him, everything seems different now. Her perceptions, her relationships with her friends. How can she go back to a normal life? Tuvok tells her, you cannot. This experience will force you to adapt. You are no longer the same person, and the course of your life will change. Where that course leads is up to you. Kes seems to ponder his advice, and we close on Voyager flying into the fade-out. The end.
Well, do you have over-analysis?
I have some over-analysis, and I think my first point is something we brought up. Why wouldn't there be a security detail in the transport of an official representative of the leader of the planet?
I don't know.
No security on Voyager, no security their side. Yeah, the guy gets killed. I feel bad for the guy. Next question.
Yeah.
Kes managed to override transporter controls, hide the warp signature, do all this other stuff. How much access to restricted info does Kes have?
It's not as if it looked like Tyrion and his people were more advanced, so the stuff was really easy for them. We didn't really see any evidence of that. So you assume it's because he's drawing on something that Kes has learned.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Part of it, I guess, is they were showing that Tyrion was pretty clever, so maybe he could also sneakily access things that Kes wouldn't normally. He was being deceptive.
Yeah, maybe.
Next thing, I thought it was really interesting that Tyrion, aka possessed Kes, had no problems accessing Kes's telekinesis powers that she said she didn't have since meeting the caretaker's ex.
Yeah.
How did he know how to use them? Could this be his experiences after 200 years of jumping bodies?
Well, I think that's a good question because, she says at one point that she doesn't know how to do that anymore or that power went away. But maybe she was just blocking that out. And when Tyrion got in there, she was using her defenses to do something else. And so he had access to that information, and she probably did too. It would make from here very little sense if she doesn't have access to that.
Oh, would she remember everything Tyrion did? I guess she probably would.
Yeah, because she was actively fighting with him over it.
Yeah. That leads on to two things. The first one is, I was wondering whether Kes is deliberately not using her powers.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question because they really scared her. And I don't think that's what she wanted. She didn't want to be that.
Right. So her saying, oh, I can't use them, it doesn't work anymore, is really Kes going, I don't want to use these things. They are too dangerous.
Well, because before that, they would come out, right?
Yeah.
She would sort of accidentally bring them out, but we haven't seen that since. I wonder, too, though, if in the writing they were like, we don't want to make her too powerful. That's not what we're going for. Yeah. And so they just sort of backed away. But from here, she should know how to use them, and she should say something, and they should have done it in this episode because it's episodic. They won't do it again. This is an opportunity for them at the end to say, oh, he broke those things back out. And she's just like, I got to get control of them, or I don't want to use them.
that would be a good way of explaining it out of the story so you don't have a godlike being.
Right.
And then the second thing is,
Yep.
So how much of Tyrion's memory does she have access to? Is part of the problem she's having in that great final scene with Tuvok is she now has these memories or remembers the experiences of this monster, as she puts it, of all the things that he's done.
Well, that's a good question. I don't think we know. She kind of implies that, but also he did some bad things right in front of her, right? He killed the leader. He killed all those guards.
Shot the poor server.
Right. With her hands.
Yeah.
So those could have been the terrible things that she was talking about.
Yeah.
Or the fact that a civil war had started, so there was some fighting going on and people had died. She might have just been talking about that, but there is a different implication that she remembers all the things that he has done. I honestly don't think so. I think I don't think she had
full
even
access.
If she had access to his memories, they're gone.
Oh.
Right? He took them with her, and maybe she still remembers some of it, but we didn't go into that much detail.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would kind of make sense that there was only specific things she could access and remember herself when they pulled his memories out, his neural patterns out. All of that was gone.
Yeah, this is a good example of something that would make a fun, long-running story.
Yeah.
Where she could be fighting that off for a long time if the show itself weren't episodic.
Oh, gosh, yeah. You could have a funny things or interesting things later where she could give tactical advice to Janeway.
Yeah, or just
almost like Dax of saying, in the Battle of so-and-so Ridge, this is all the things we did to win.
Right. I mean, we frequently talked about that on the Deep Space Nine podcast, that the Trill are very interesting because of things like that, but we didn't necessarily always make good use of it. Yeah. And this would have been a good example of where we could have made better use of this character. Yeah. But again, we're trying to do everything within 46 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah. Shadows of Tyrion coming out in later episodes. Yeah, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, why not?
Next thing, Nori and Aiden. Were they also using transfer technology?
Oh.
He seemed to know about how all this technology worked. The Doctor. Is he the original Doctor? Was this Tyrion's original wife from 200 years ago? Well, not the original body, but they swapped too.
Well, we certainly don't know the answer to that question.
No, it wasn't touched or even addressed.
No, I hadn't thought so, but maybe. But the Doctor's dead, so he's a goner.
Yeah. Well, you're not getting that technology back. I mean, I think as well, does anybody else know about that technology?
Well, the autarch's son knew about it, knew what it was.
But they didn't necessarily know the specifics.
Maybe didn't have the specifications for it, but knew of it. But certainly, I mean, you'd think the Doctor wrote it down somewhere.
Well, isn't this technology also kind of very dangerous? Because if the Doctor knows how it works and can explain it, you've got the potential for, body jumping.
Yeah, it's too powerful. There should have been, they needed something in there to make it less powerful or less repeatable or something.
Yeah, right. And then wouldn't the Doctor have noticed the implant in this guy's head? Oh, again, I suppose he probably wouldn't do an autopsy or anything like that, but wouldn't he have scanned it? I guess he did when he investigated, I suppose.
I mean, you would think so. Yeah, but, I mean, you would think so, yes. But when you've got an alien you've never seen before, so you've got no baseline of them in your database, maybe that's just a thing. Maybe that's an implant that helps him walk or something. You don't know until you know.
Yeah. And I think my final point is, so I wonder if he got this technology from Vantika, or if there's some other race, some other alien race that invented this, and Vantika got hold of it, and Tyrion, the autarch. So there's, maybe a few other people. The technology's been lost to a large extent.
I mean, that was a long time ago when we did that episode. That's the passenger from season 1 of Deep Space Nine. I can't remember if there was any technology involved or if that was just something that individual was able to do in body jumping.
Yes, because the alien cop destroyed the little transfer thing that he had at the end. Sorry, spoilers.
That was such a goofy, melodramatic episode compared to this one. It was quite different.
Oh, yeah. This is a far better one.
This is a far better episode, yeah. It would be fun if you could put together all the different sort of Star Trek tropes that are done in all the different shows and have a kind of who did it better of each one.
Oh, this is definitely one of the best possessed ones.
Yeah, this is a good one. I mean, there were some good possessed ones on Deep Space Nine as well. There was the one with Keiko, right? That was pretty good when she was possessed by a paw wraith. But this one seems very similar to the passenger episode in terms of the story and what happens. But yeah.
Because it uses technology. It's pure technology-driven possession.
Yeah, and Voyager does this one better.
And that, I think, wraps up my overanalysis. Over to you.
I don't have any other overanalysis other than what you already said, except just to say that Jennifer Lean is so good in this episode. I mean, when she's given stuff to do, she really is, she really delivers.
Yeah, there are 3 outstanding scenes, I think, in this episode.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about them now. And the first one is the Great Hall when she is ranting and pulling down the drapes.
I love that scene.
She's so weirdly manic.
Yeah.
And like you said, when she then does this almost hop, skip, and a jump running to Nori and apologizing.
And then she gets really close. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's really good. The next one is the fight scene in the dream sequence.
Right.
She starts off as like this soft kiss and then ends up at the end as this, I will burn you. And then the final scene where she's explaining how she feels and Tuvok is giving her the advice. I just thought that was another good scene.
Yeah. No, I think she's good in every scene. Yeah. I still really wonder if that was a deep-seated feeling she had that was coming out when she was talking to Neelix. I mean, she was even good in that scene. I suppose it's possible he was just drawing on something from season 1, some old feelings that, because I don't know, do things ever go away? They're still there somewhere because they're in your memory, even if maybe you don't feel them anymore.
Right. You know? I think Tyrion did seem like somebody who would exploit anything.
Right. Well, I don't have, maybe it's because I'm jet lagged. I mean, I was a couple of days ago, I was in a time zone that was 10 hours different. I'm still a bit confused, but I don't have a lot in Women in the Future or in Janeway's Leadership Corner. But what I will say about Women in the Future was I was serious that it was typical that B'Elanna is the only cast member to have to put on a bathing suit, right? Of course, they're going to do that to the women because the women were held to, and still are, held to this impossibly skinny standard. But somehow Harry and Tom could have also been in bathing suits, but they were not. I mean, yes, of course, they brought in a model or whatever in a bathing suit who was a man, but it's not a member of the main cast. He had no lines. He doesn't necessarily count. But I do like, because B'Elanna frequently would call Tom on his crap, right? And in his other
Tom,
program.
you're a pig.
Yeah, exactly. So I sort of feel like that's what she was doing again here. It's like, okay, bring in all the women you want, but here's one I'm interested in. So I always like that about B'Elanna. In Janeway's Leadership Corner, I had just 2 things. One was straight power play, which we already talked about, which I love. And
awesome.
I know
totally awesome.
At least one of our listeners remembers straight power play and brings it up with me all the time, and I do think that's fine. I'm sure there's more than one, but there's one who brings it up. And then the other thing is this plan of Tuvok's was absolute garbage, that he was somehow going to get in there and put this thing on her face in a room full of people, and that was going to work. That was the dumbest plan we have seen yet, I think.
That was a little bit of a DS9 plan, okay.
Yeah, we talked about that so frequently. That was mostly in the early seasons. I don't remember if we kept talking about it later, but yeah, there were so many bad plans that it became a thing. But okay, so that's all that I have. So let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Absolute thumbs up. What a great episode. Really enjoyable. Jennifer Lean is fantastic in it. Tuvok I really like as well, apart from the bad plan. I think the whole thing worked really well. And I should have looked up his name. The actor who played Demas, great. He had a real air about him that I thought really worked as now the head of this planet, this autarch. The whole thing, I think, worked as a great episode. Jennifer Lean in the leather villain suit as well. Top notch. Again, just everything worked well. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thumbs up. Definitely worth a rewatch. And a great version of the classic Star Trek trope of the possession by the evil alien. So, what can I say? Thumbs up. Loved it.
I agree, thumbs up. It's very rewatchable. I saw a lot more in my second watching than I did in the first. Maybe because the first one I did on an airplane. But although I got nothing else going on, so I'm pretty focused on it.
Kind of focused on it, yeah.
Frequently in the house, I'm playing with some device and maybe paying attention less. But I got a lot more out of it the second time. So yeah, I agree. This is the second time, though, that you've told me, oh, this is a really good episode, you got to watch it. And then I start to watch it and I'm like, well, I must be watching a different episode because it starts with this stupid thing on the holodeck. I'm like, really? This is a great episode? But then it is great. And that also happened in that episode, Remember, with B'Elanna a couple episodes ago. where I was like, this is the episode he says is great. And then, of course, because it starts with B'Elanna meeting some guy in the dark and having sex with him. And I'm just like, this is the one? And then, yes, it did turn out to be a great episode. So they don't always start the way that they end. But yeah, this is a good episode.
I believe my comment on it was the weirdest opening, but the rest of the episode is just great.
Yeah. All right, well, that wraps up Season 3, Episode 10. Come back next week for Episode 11. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your over-analysis on this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com, or you could reach out to us on Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, or Threads at ReBingeIT, or you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.